Hello, Uta here of Trans Widow Uta Hagen YouTube channel with a few different things. Especially excited about this wild blue phlox. I picked my first one to bloom to show you. It grows low to the ground in a mound, and I've actually divided three off of the original, so I have four clumps of it. I do have to protect it from the deer and the woodchucks outside. And these are tulips, a couple of standard tulips and species tulips, and the last of my daffodils. And these sweet little bulbs, which kind of look like lilies of the valley, but they are something that's more closely related to snowdrops. And uh, I'm so pleased to have a bouquet of new things. Now, I am also the author of, oops, In the Curated Woods, True Tales from a Grass Widow. And that's from iUniverse. I published it 2 years ago in 2022. This video is about, I just wanted to mention, I'm sure that you can see that I dinged myself on my mouth. That is a hazard of being 67 years old and gardening after cataract surgery when you have your glasses on and then you don't see so well close up, which is the opposite of what you've had all of your life until you got the cataract surgery. And so I had my glasses on for distance viewing, and then I was doing something close up, and the handle of one of my tools bonked me in the mouth. But as I said to my great friend and handyman Jean, I actually don't even mind if I get a scar, but I don't think I will. I think it's going to be fine. Please, don't worry. It doesn't hurt anymore, and I'm going to be much more careful about how I place the handles of my tools. I was in such shock when it happened. It did kind of bleed a lot, and because it was such a small little ding and then boom, Anyway, do be careful with the tools when you are gardening. All right. This is actually a response to the Cass review, the 388-page report about the so-called gender-affirming care using gonadotrophin agonists, puberty blockers, and opposite sex hormones, and leading to the path of genital modification surgeries, sex trait modification surgeries at the Tavistock GIDS, GIDS, gender identity something service. And this Dr. Hilary Cass has been working on an analysis of all of this and a review of all of the literature for something like 3 or 4 years. And last year there was an initial response, an introductory response, which was taken to be rather urgent because Dr. Hilary Cass felt that the Tavistock should be closed down, that it is doing harm, that these so-called gender-affirming care, euphemistically termed, as all of those captured treatments, captured linguistics, she decided this is just too dangerous. Look at the case of Kira Bell, who sued the Tavistock a couple of years ago because they put her down this path of testosterone and a double mastectomy and so on, and then she regretted it. All of this happened while she was a vulnerable teenager who had been in foster care. And so Those of us who have been scrutinizing the cross-sex ideology and have been scrutinizing the carelessness of these psychiatrists, psychologists, surgeons, and so on, endocrinologists, are not surprised that she would find all these flaws in these medical treatments. But, of course, the cross-sex ideation ideologues are responding with rage and outrage and saying that, of course, you can't make a criticism about this medical approach because there would never be randomized double-blind trials, which are the gold standard for any medical treatments. But while that might be the case, it might be true that it would be very difficult to do any kind of double blind. Actually, you wouldn't be able to do a double blind because opposite sex hormones cause changes in the body. So you'd be able to tell who was taking the placebo and who was taking the what boy was taking the estrogen or what girl was taking the testosterone, because they have effects. So there are very many recognized understandings about the impossibility of doing a double-blind randomized study to figure out the efficacy of this radical treatment for the obsessive thinking of cross-sex ideation. So I'm not surprised by the reaction. I think we have to prepare ourselves to respond to it, and even to say, well, I'm not surprised by that reaction. I'm not surprised that things are being misinterpreted, made up, fabricated, and thrown back in response to the Cass paper. However, what is absolutely irrefutable is that the Dutch study by Cohen, Ketenis, De Vries, and Steensma from, I think, 2011 is very, very poor foundation for what is called gender-affirming care, and especially involving the puberty blockers, which is what that Dutch study, which led to the Dutch protocols of the puberty blockers and then the whole path towards eventual sex trait modification surgeries. That study had a lot of flaws. Number one, there were so many dropouts. There were 2 deaths. That was really never examined in any kind of serious way. And the ending result of that study was that there were only 32 or 33 participants who filled out the exit surveys, and the exit surveys were given in a very, very strange way, where the females were asked questions that were designed for males and vice versa. So Hilary Cass's criticism of the foundation of that study in Holland, in the Netherlands, is absolutely valid. And yes, yes, I understand that you can't do a randomized double-blind study with this treatment. However, the fact that the long-term follow-up has been so sketchy just throws it all into question. Uh, uh, you know, researchers are loath to criticize each other specifically, so it's up to us, you could say non-professionals, to look at the researchers like DeVries, like Jack Turbin, and even like Zucker and even like Blanchard, and say this is ignoring some very serious methodological uh, irregularities. Uh, and basically, uh, if I was a parent of a kid who is having this kind of obsession, I would make sure that any professional that this child goes to, I would say don't take your child to any kind of so-called gender affirming practitioners, but if they somehow are exposed to them, document um, your response to the Cass report, document your criticisms of the Jack Turbin surveys, which are done online with very little identification of the participants, as well as the Dutch protocols, and see if you can get that practitioner to actually sign a form saying that they agree, you showed this to them, you discussed this with them, because then at least later, if your child regrets this, then you have set up the pathway towards a medical malpractice lawsuit. So the Cass review lays the path towards the medical malpractice lawsuits. And I'm afraid that is one of the most significant paths to get some progress. It's unfortunate that the various medical associations like the Association of Pediatrics and the AMA will not, make a statement saying they're reevaluating things. But they are captured. They have their investments. They have their invested reputations and money and so on. And you're just not going to get the type of responsibility towards medical ethics that we owe to the kids who are having these delusions. So the reason I believe the response of rage and outrage is so strong in the ranks of the cross-sex ideation ideologues is that the adults who think they were born in the wrong body need the children's treatment, the so-called gender-affirming care of children, as demonstrated by the continued chants of Dr. Richard Rachel Levine. They need this to justify what they have done in adulthood. They need the children's narrative to justify what they did as adults. And therefore, they are not at all neutral parties. Okay, now I think a big need is not only for exploratory therapy, which Dr. Hilary Cass writes about as the first step for a adolescent or teenager presenting with these ideas and this rhetoric and this thought pattern. I believe that the mind-body connection needs to be a focus. And the fact that if you have surgeries which are going to leave you with scars, That means that the nerve tissue is permanently cut. Some nerves will, of course, recover, just like it did with my big surgery to remove a benign bone tumor from the outside of the top of my head. However, just like I have scar neuroma when I'm a little overworked, um, anyone having that kind of a surgery leaving scars, these sex trait modification surgeries, will basically, by definition, have interrupted the flow of information from the nerves to the brain. And so this will not lead to a more secure, healthy mind-body connection. And the need for mind-body strategies to cope with stress, with panic attacks, with feelings of distress is very, very necessary. And basically, it's the feelings of distress are physical manifestations of the distress of any human being who has gone through trauma or who is having trouble putting negative thought patterns and obsessive thought patterns out of their mind. And it is very important to regain your sense of balance through mindful practices. And I particularly favor Feldenkrais physical therapy. There's also Alexander work. I've heard of something called trauma yoga that's supposed to help you release from trauma that's being, in a way, held as tension in joints or something. I don't know enough about it to recommend it, but these are mind-body approaches. And what I saw, for example, with other people who ideate an opposite sex persona, as well as my ex-husband, is that over the long term, the happiness does not grow. So, back outside, I'm happy to report, because of my last year's mulching, the weeds are easier to pull out.